What's up, Legion? It's Steve Zapf here, coming to you by myself due to some unforeseen circumstances, partially doing with Hurricane Milton, partially doing with business schedules and things to that effect. I am your lone host this week. Showtime will be joining us again. Unfortunately, to go along with the scheduling issues, the Wrestle Dream review episode will be coming out a little later than expected, and we do apologize for that, but we will be having that out later on this week, I promise. So let's start off this week. I am, of course, Steve Zapf, the leader of the Legion of Lariat. Legion, we welcome you as always. Thank you for being a part of this. If you're watching our videos, if you are listening to us on Spotify, if you are listening to us on any streaming platform, and you are not already doing it, please follow, subscribe, hit the like button, comment, let us know what you like about us. Let us know what you don't like about us so we stop doing it, guys. We really do appreciate all your support, but as always, please hit that subscribe, hit that follow button. It helps us out more than you will ever know. So let's get down to some of the stuff we normally talk about. First off, our nonprofit organizations that we help out with. We have Tap Cancer Out, a series of jiu-jitsu tournaments that helps out with varying cancer organizations. You have Alex's Lemonade Stand, American Brain Tumor Association, Isabella Santos Foundation, Little Pink Houses of Hope, Camp Sunshine, Christopher's Haven, the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins, CureCervicalCancer.org, First Descent, and of course, Tom Coughlin's J-Fund. The J-Funds. The other organization that we are trying to help out with currently, and there will be links for both of these in our descriptions, is the American Red Cross's Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene relief funds. Please, these storms cause so much destruction, both along Florida and just along the coast, in Georgia, in all these places. I've heard that the news reports for places like Asheville, North Carolina, don't even do it justice. So please, please help out with this. These storms really left some people displaced and without homes, without clothing. A lot of these areas are going into the colder weather where they don't even have jackets to help themselves out with. So please help out with the relief. I don't care if it's, in all honesty, help out with any relief fund at this point. It'll help so many people at this point. But with that said, guys, let's talk some wrestling. Some RASSLIN wrestling. That's what we're talking this week. So, some sad news coming out of Ring of Honor. Former Ring of Honor COO Joe Koff passes away at 73 this past week. This is sad, I know. He was very close with many of the classic Ring of Honor talent, the guys that really made Ring of Honor what it was, and he was the COO during that time span. We wish his family and his friends the best and hope that they are doing as well as possible in this time. But with some happier news, Zack Sabre Jr. wins the IWGP World Heavyweight title at the King of Pro Wrestling event for New Japan. This is huge. He said he wasn't going to cash in for Wrestle Kingdom. That means that going into Wrestle Kingdom, Zack Sabre Jr. will most likely be the world champion. I don't see them taking that off of him. So I'd love to see who they set up as his number one contender for this. I know me and Hound steer a little bit more towards the Japanese stuff than Showtime does. But in all honesty, I think this is something that even Showtime will get into. And a little bit more on the Japanese side of things, Shinsuke Nakamura will be wrestling in Japan for Pro Wrestling Noah against Oka Sasaki. I apologize if I'm saying that name improperly. But he will be doing another show for Japan. This is huge. This is more of just that talent sharing that WWE has been doing. And this is a good way for some of their talent to still be able to work when they're not really being utilized on the roster currently, especially a guy like Shinsuke who has so much legend and lore over in Japan, I think this is a major, major transition for him, and I'm very happy that he gets to do some of these one-shots over there. It's so cool that a lot of these guys, him, AJ Styles, a lot of them are now going over there and really getting to do stuff in Japan again, especially since they had so much success over there to begin with. Also, Logan Paul believes, he stated on his podcast on Impulsive that as great as Jacob Fatu is, he thinks that he'll be facing Jacob Fatu in the near future, given the way their star is. I don't completely disagree with this, but also I think in order for Logan Paul to be facing Jacob Fatu, he'd have to be a little bit more full-time. Secondly, and this is just me spitballing this one out. Secondly, currently they're both heels. I think that poses a problem. You don't want Jacob Fatu out there destroying another heel. And in all honesty, if Jacob Fatu's in there with anyone right now, he needs to be destroying them. He's that special. He needs to be set up in a way where he is that special. So that is what we have for the outside wrestling world. This is always the episode where we cover TNA, Total Nonstop Action, and the WWE. So let's get to the promotion that we champion. We love TNA wrestling here. We constantly say, and I will say it every week, that I think TNA wrestling is the best wrestling show on television today. I think it is the most classic wrestling show, if you will. I think that what they do on TNA really is just what you want for wrestling. It doesn't insult your intelligence. It has amazing matches. It honestly has the best tag division in any of the companies right now, just hands down. And man, I can't speak well enough about it. I love that they have some comedy in it, but it's not over comedy. Most of their matches don't really deal within comedy. Their promos are taken seriously for the most part. Like, there is funny stuff. Joe Hendry is always funny, but he's funny, but he's not a joke. And I like that about him. So let's get into TNA though. The show opened with a 6 knockout tag match between Rosemary, Wendy Chu, and Tasha Steelz, with Alicia Edwards managing, versus Masha Slamovich, Sol Ruka, and Jordan Grace. This was a good match. It six person match in general usually dissolves into a little bit of a schmoz, if you will. It gets a little messy at times, and I think that was kind of where they were at with this match. Is it unfortunately got a little messy. But I'm always very impressed with Jordan Grace, but I was really impressed with Masha Slamovich's power in this. It was kind of what we say for, I hate to say this, but for like Willow and Nia, what I think their power level, what they're trying to display for the power level, but this was actually what that power level should be at. She really showed the ability to throw some people around, and Rosemary and Wendy Chu especially, they might be shorter, but they're not smaller women. They are average sized girls that having them get thrown around like that is impressive. I like at the end of this match, they showed a little bit of dissension between Masha and Jordan. That's leading into more storyline, leading into the title match that they keep building towards. So I'm really excited. Again, I think they're doing a good job building this story. We go right from that into a backstage promo with Josh Alexander. Now, I try to steer clear if it's a very short backstage promo, but in this case, it is definitely something that deserves talking about. So I like this new attitude that Josh Alexander has. This is very reminiscent of when him and Ethan Page were the North. He has a lot more of that condescending attitude. It adds a nice little bit of character to someone who's already a great wrestler. I like that their new name between them and Sinner and Saint are the Northern Armory. I think that's kind of cool. That's a cool stable name, and I like that it's this. He's the experienced guy, and he has these younger guys under him, and these guys are, and both of them are good. The team with Sinner and Saint is a really really good team. I'm excited to see where they go, and once again, this is one of those. It adds more depth to an already pretty deep tag division. I mean, we're talking about a tag team division that has the Hardys, ABC, the System, Steve Macklin and Eric Young when they decide to team up. There's some good teams in this division, and I feel like we're not constantly getting the same teams, which I like. There's a good rotation of tag teams going after the tag team titles, and I love that. And Sinner and Saint, I think, will get thrown into that mix. Right from there, we get an in-ring angle that starts off between Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry. I love the fact that as soon as Nick says Joe Hendry's name, his music hits and he appears, because say his name and he appears. Joe Hendry, 252 pounds of walking inspiration. And I believe at Bound for Glory, Joe Hendry is going to take the world title. And I hope so. He deserves to be the face of that company. And he's done so much work. But this promo, or this in-ring angle, it gets interrupted by First Class, which is AJ Francis and Casey Navarro. I really like Casey Navarro, especially in this role. Just in general, I don't feel like I feel like any heat that AJ Francis can get at this point, unfortunately, he's the one downside that I end up finding to TNA sometimes. And especially since he's not on there all the time. Like they throw him in a match occasionally and he doesn't really win. It's one of those things where I don't believe him for anything, but he's also a monster. He's giant. So I feel like they could turn him around very quickly. It's not real hard to all of a sudden have him go on a little bit of a winning streak and now he's a contender again. But just talking here, I don't know. I don't know if he's trying to be funny or what it was. But in this case, I said I didn't realize AJ Francis could get worse, and yet here we are. In the middle of all this, they start talking about if only Nick Nemeth could find a tag team partner, and Joe Hendry turns around and looks at him and gives that big toothy Beetlejuice grin that he does. And then Santino Marella comes out, and he makes it a tag team match, playa. That's right, a tag team match. So it'll be Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth versus First Class in the main event, which I do love that Santino calls it Fist Clash. Fist Clash. That's right. We do get a match between Josh Alexander and Eric Young. This match was really good, and it's a good show from two experienced veterans. Alexander takes the win after Sinner and Saint interfere. And they ended up closing a chair, like compressing the chair on Eric Young's knee at the end of this. I don't know how long they're planning on keeping him out, but it seems like this is their way of circling over to Steve Macklin a little bit more, but we'll see. Maybe this is one of those things where Eric Young is gonna fight back and really go after the both of them, or all three of them, maybe at Bound for Glory. We have a few weeks. We do have about 2 weeks before about 10 days before Bound and Glory. And honestly, I'm really excited for that pay-per-view. As I said, we will be reviewing it. We are not going to do a preview. We're not doing predictions. But we are going to preview TNA Bound for Glory. It is their biggest pay-per-view of the year. It is what everything builds towards. And I'm excited for this, man. If nothing else, Nick Nemeth versus versus Joe Hendry is going to be very good. It's going to be entertaining at the least, and probably a good match, better than most people expect it to be, including myself. I think it's going to be good, and I have a feeling that they're going to bring it in a way that we haven't seen before. So we get a Mike Santana in-ring promo. He ends up calling out Moose. Santana and Moose exchange, and the fans get behind Santana calling Moose a baby back bitch. The fans really, really jumped on that, started chanting it. The system comes out and jump Mike Santana. It breaks down into a melee where it's the system, the Hardys, ABC, Santana, and I love when Santino comes out and calls them the Hard Boys, but it immediately goes right into what is going to be considered a number one contenders match between the Hardys and ABC. I really, really like this match. Here's where I'm at with Matt and Jeff Hardy. They're obviously not who they used to be. They're not. They're older. They're injury ridden at this point. They've both had knee problems, concussions. They're not in their 20s or 30s anymore. They're older guys who have spent a lifetime in this business. So they're not what they used to be, but they are still good enough to make a team that's already good, like the ABC, look good. And I appreciate that about them. I appreciate that they went out there and they still did. They did the greatest hits. They did the Whisper in the Wind. They did the springboard off of Matt's back. So if my theory is if we had the Hardys 10 years ago versus ABC, this match would have been epic. That match is basically a main event, a pay-per-view main event anywhere in the world as far as I'm concerned. Unfortunately, we just don't have the Hardys 10 years ago. We have the Hardys today. The system comes out, they get the match thrown out, and it ends up turning into a Bound for Glory 3-way tag match for the tag team titles in Full Metal Mayhem. I don't believe that's a ladder match, but I believe there's a good chance that it's basically just a TLC match. It's just their version of it. I haven't researched the Full Metal Mayhem in a while, but it's mostly just probably TLCs. We get a 3-way match between the Laredo Kid, Jason Hotch, and Leon Slater. I say this about Will Ospreay all the time on AEW. Leon Slater's a good kid. He's 20 years old, I think they said. He's an amazing athlete. And I think if he was just to be produced, he would be epic. He would do really, really well in this with everything. I think he just needs to get his entrance to slow down a little bit and really get something where he's, like I said, produced. I don't think his matches even need to be produced. I think it's a little bit in his entrances. He needs to slow down a little bit on that stuff and give the fans time to soak him in. We get more stuff backstage with Jordan Grace, where she goes into Masha Slamovich's locker room and sees that she has her kill board back out. Excuse me. I just needed that to get through the rest of this. She then makes her way to the ring, and we get an in-ring angle between Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich. This is really cool. I like the angle that they're doing. This very much came off as a keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. And I like the attitude that Masha is giving. It's very super villainy. It's very I think it's a little bit of a quick turn because they just became friends a few weeks ago. But at the same time, you could say like you became friends just to turn on her, which I'm okay with that as well. I think this match is going to be amazing. I can't wait. Masha Stanovich has been very impressive. And Jordynne Grace is honestly, she, as far as female wrestlers go, as far as women wrestlers go, I rank her up there with the top of the top five, honestly. She's in there with the Rhea Ripleys and the Charlotte Flairs and the people of that like that I want to see her in there with. I want to see her in there with a Rhea Ripley. I want to see her in there with a Charlotte Flair. And she's so different. And I kind of hope that this isn't just them taking the title off of her so that she can go over to NXT. But I also understand that I believe her and Jonathan Gresham's contract are both up at this point or coming up. And that might be the route that we're going with this. But if we get a nice little program to end this between Jordynne and Masha to complete her out of her contract before she goes on to, I don't want to say greener pastures, but a bigger farm, so to speak, I wouldn't mind seeing that. So then we get the main event. Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry versus First Class, Casey Navarro and AJ Francis. The match was good. The match was kind of what I expected. I will say this. I saw Casey Navarro very early in his career. He was like Kid Candy or something like that. He was still he was supposed to be on a sugar high, basically. And I love that. First of all, he's taking his workout seriously, and he's not the biggest dude in the world, but he wants to at least look like an athlete and look like a wrestler, and I appreciate that from him. Secondly, about Casey Navarro, I very much appreciate that he has slowed down just a hair. He's still probably the fastest guy in the ring. Casey Navarro has early Rey Mysterio vibes for me. I think that early Amazing Red vibes for me. I could see him really, really doing something amazing in this business, especially if they keep going with him. And honestly, if they do a split between him and AJ Francis, they could do a giant killer gimmick with him, and it would very much work. I think it'd be cool to see. I think he has an interesting look, even though he's a little bit on the smaller side currently. But he makes you want to watch him, and that's the biggest thing. He has what they call it. The baby faces go over in this match, so Nemeth and Hendry. But I like that Nemeth and Hendry had a game of one-upmanship. Both of them hit each other's finishers in this. It was a very cool little nod to this, and it definitely has me way more excited for Bound for Glory than I already was, and I was already really excited for Bound for Glory. Like I said, TNA, if you're not watching TNA, you should be watching TNA. If you're spending $30 on an app that you don't pay attention to anyway, cancel that app. Get the TNA Plus app. The coolest thing about the TNA Plus app is you can watch every Impact, and when they when they do pictures in pictures, they don't actually cut away. You get to see all the action without that. It's amazing. I'm so happy for it. I'm loving that we're covering TNA as closely as we are now. The show split for us has been awesome because I get to watch all of this stuff that for a while I didn't get to see as much of, and I'm really happy about it. But with that said, guys, let's go on to the number one wrestling company in the world. The world! We have WWE and Friday Night SmackDown. And this is SmackDown following, I believe this is the first SmackDown following Bad Blood. And we get Jimmy Uso opens the show and announces Roman Reigns. Roman comes out, calls for the mic in the old way they used to. Jimmy hands it to him. And Roman Reigns calls for everyone to acknowledge Big Brother Jimmy Uso. I love it. I love that they acknowledged him. I love that Roman did that little bit for it. I also love the interaction that they have with each other. It is a very family interaction. Like, it seemed more like they were at a family barbecue than cutting the promo. And in this case, I don't agree with it all the time, but this was the time where I enjoyed it. They obviously alluded to bloodline versus bloodline, with Jimmy saying that there's one guy that they need help from, and that one guy is obviously main event Jey Uso. And Roman says, no yeet. I wouldn't be surprised, we'll get more into this when I start getting into Raw, but don't be surprised if there's a little bit more to this. Again, new bloodline, you have Solo, you have Jacob, you have the Tongans. That's 4. You're going to need, you can't go against those powerhouses shorthanded. So even 3, I don't see that. Even if they get the Usos and Roman, they're still a hand short. So I feel like we're going a very, very specific way with this storyline. And I'm not saying I don't usually hate predictability in this case, but I would have liked a little bit of unpredictableness. We go into the U.S. title match. Carmelo Hayes, the challenger, versus LA Knight with Andrade at ringside. LA Knight goes over clean, mostly just off of Andrade giving a little bit of distraction. It's an overall clean win. I've been saying this for a while. Andrade and Carmelo are like a forever feud at this point, and I don't know if they're necessarily the guys that LA Knight needs to be involved with right now to push his U.S. title reign to the point where you really believe that he's ready for the next level. In all honesty, almost a year ago when he went in for the Royal Rumble and stuff like that, I truly believe that he was ready for the world title back then. I feel like I've fallen off of that a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. The only reason why I didn't think he was going to win it back then was because it was Roman. I don't know. I think he needs a few monsters to fight. Like, the stuff with him and Logan Paul was cool, but I don't know. I think he needs to slay some dragons, so to speak, and I think that'll really get him back in there. I think he needs some guys that look like they're way outside of his weight class, way outside of his issues. I'd said if they could have had him and Bobby Lashley at one point, if they could get Bronson Reed over to SmackDown, that would be a good one for him. Or he needs to beat up like a full-on stable and not Legado del Fantasma. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, he needs to beat up the bloodline. He needs the new bloodline. He needs to beat up Judgment Day if they're at their strongest. Not Judgment Day right now, because right now kind of everyone's beating up on Judgment Day. So I think LA Knight needs something where he is getting attacked by a super strong stable and he comes out on top. I think that would be a really cool gimmick. Unfortunately, it feels like most of the monsters are over on Raw right now. So the idea of slaying the dragon is a little harder to do. We get a women's tag team title match that is going to be Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson from NXT versus Bianca and Jade. The match, there's not much to talk about. Honestly, the beginning of the match, this was more about Owens and Cody coming out and the angle with Randy Orton getting accidentally caught with an elbow by Owens, so he fires back and hits Kevin, just furthering the storyline. I think it seems like everyone saw a heel turn from Owens and Orton, so now the pivot is no one trusts anybody. And I'm okay with that. I like that. That's a little different than what we were going to get or what it seemed like we were going to get. And in this case, I like different. This is Cody's title run has been way too predictable, and I think adding a little bit of spice to it might be good. It's been a little too vanilla. I think we need some chocolate. We need some Neapolitan ice cream in there. We need some chocolate and some strawberry at the least. I don't know which one of those two guys are chocolate and strawberry, but y'all can make that decision. The actual match for the women's tag team title lasted all of 5 minutes. I think it actually lasted less than 5 minutes. Bianca and Jade take it. In all honesty, it was like NXT's version of Bianca and Jade versus real Bianca and Jade, and I hate saying it like that, but like this wasn't a passing of the torch match. This wasn't a old line versus young line match. This was just, hey, we're going to give you the real version versus what we're going to eventually try to turn into that version. And I don't know. I feel like the women's tag team division has been hot garbage for a long time, and we constantly say it. And I think it's time that they either do they need to figure it out. They need to figure out both all the men's tag team division and the women's tag team division in WWE need to get figured out, and it needs to be figured out quickly. We go directly into a Nia Jax with Tiffany in-ring promo. It gets interrupted by Naomi, and it also gets interrupted by Liv Morgan, Dom Mysterio, and Raquel Rodriguez. It turns into a match between Nia and Naomi. Thanks to Liv's outside interference, Naomi gets a win over Nia Jax. Liv hit. So originally, Raquel nails Tiffany, takes the briefcase, gives it to Liv. Liv hits Nia with the briefcase, which with the weakest briefcase shots I've ever seen. Like they did not look good. They should have workshopped that one a little bit more. At the end of it, Rhea comes out to get her pound of flesh and just kind of plows through just about everybody during the match. Liv gets saved by Dom. As per usual, they make their way out. It's just very... it seemed like this was almost more of a reason just to get more Rhea and Liv and Dom out there, which I'm okay with. I love the storyline. I know they mentioned in this that Nia wants Tiffy to cash in on Liv. I feel like this is still just feeding more and more into this idea that Tiffy's going to cash in on Nia. Or Tiffany's going to cash in before Crown Jewel and walk in there for the Crown Jewel Championship. I could see that happening too. I don't know if that's... I don't think they're going to pull the trigger like that, but I think it would be very cool to see if all of a sudden you're forced to get Nia versus Tiffany Stratton for that giant title. And that title has Tiffy written all over it. When you have 50 carats of diamonds, everything she does is bedazzled. We get backstage with the Street Profits and DIY, but it immediately leads to you seeing Kevin Owens beating on Randy Orton. I like how they're doing these quick cuts and things like that. It's something different. It makes it seem much more realistic. Like, oh, like, why would a camera just magically be there? But no, like, guys should be back there backstage. So that what they're doing makes sense now. It seems much more... they're delving a bit more into realism, and I appreciate that. And I'm not saying they're not insulting the fans' intelligence anymore. So that is a big thing for me, is we need suspension of disbelief. We need to not insult the fans' intelligence. And I feel like WWE is doing a very good job of it currently, at least with some of the major storylines. Some of the lower mid card storylines, they're a little little hit or miss on that one. But we then get the main event. You're going to hear it at least one more time, guys, so hope you're not getting annoyed with that one. We get Jimmy Uso versus Solo Sikoa. Big brother versus little brother. I like this. I really like this match, actually. Solo had some great lines. One of them was while he was beating down on Jimmy, he looked at him and said, "Jimmy, you're the little brother now." And I loved it. I popped huge for that. It was such a, yeah, I'm the tribal chief. You're the little brother. You don't get to tell me what to do. Jacob Fatu is a freak of nature. I don't know what else to say about him. That man's a future world champion. If he's not a world champion, I don't know what we're doing in the world, because my God, if anyone is believable in the world of professional wrestling, it is Jacob Fatu. First of all, he is a freak athletically. Secondly, I don't know anyone that wouldn't be scared standing next to that man, and he commits so fully to what he does. And I can't gush enough about Jacob Fatu, and I know we do it a lot on this show, but he is so good. So good. And if you don't get it with Jacob Fatu, go watch some of his old MLW stuff. You'll get it. You'll absolutely get it. Solo ends up winning this match with help from the new bloodline. They end up jumping Jimmy. Roman comes out to make the save. By the way, Tongalo is still terrible in this whole thing. Ika La Thalata, or whatever we were calling him, basically means failure. He was just terrible during this whole thing. He didn't look like he was even good cheering on Solo. But it leads to Roman getting a spike from Solo, and new bloodline leaves, and Jimmy is telling Roman in the corner that they need help. Sorry about that break, guys. But that was pretty much SmackDown. And let's move on to the A show. So this is the first time we are reporting on a 2-hour Raw. We only have Raw is 2 hours for the rest of the year. It's actually a little bit nicer. I think you get a little bit more action in a more condensed time span with it. I like 2 hours of Raw. I know Showtime and I have spoken about Raw possibly going back, or probably going back to 3 hours when it goes to Netflix, but it won't have a set time. So maybe it'll be 3 hours. Maybe it'll be like 2 hours and 45 minutes. Maybe it'll be, whatever. But it's going to be set for 8 to 11 or whatever it is, but maybe it'll only go to 8 till 10:45. Or maybe sometimes it'll go to 8 till 11:15. Sometimes you'll get an overrun, sometimes you'll get an underrun. It'll give it a little bit more, it won't be as predictable as it had. So you won't necessarily know, like if you're looking at it and all of a sudden the main event starts at 10:40, you're not like, oh, this is definitely going to be 20 minutes then, and they could end it in 5, and it could be a squash or something like that. I think it's really cool that they have this freedom of timing now when they go to Netflix in January. So I do want to talk about, first off, throughout the night we get a lot of Jimmy and Jay interaction, and this is the first time Jimmy and Jay Uso have interacted at all since WrestleMania. Literally since WrestleMania. They have not spent any time in any room together on screen since then. So for 6 months, we haven't seen either one of them together, or we haven't seen them together. I like the overall interaction that they did. I like that that Jimmy is saying no, or that Jay is saying no, to Jimmy, and that Jimmy he knows that's what they need. I have a theory, and I wanted to get into it when I started talking about Raw, rather than go into it beforehand. There's one other guy And let's face it, we all know that Sammy's going to be a part of this. Jimmy was the first guy to accept Sammy. Jay begrudgingly accepted Sammy, and now they're so tight. I could see Jimmy getting Sammy on board, and that's how they get Jay on board, is if Sammy can let bygones be bygones, then Jay can let bygones be bygones. It might not be forgive and forget, but it might be, this is bigger than what needs to be done. This is family. We need, we need the bloodline, the real bloodline back together. And part of the real bloodline is the honorary Uso. So that's my theory. Papa H, if you're listening, again, you like my theory. This is not what you're going to do, but you're going to pivot and steal my idea. Remember, I'm still available. I am definitely able to be hired. Please talk to me. Yes, that is my shameless plug. Rhea opens the show. I like that they've got her looking a little bit more intense than even ever. A lot of times she comes out and she's kind of singing her music, and I get it. She digs her music. It's played by a band that she's actually into. But I like that she kind of came straight down and just had this look in her eye. She gets interrupted by Tiffany Stratton. And Tiffany tells everyone that she's delivering a message from Nia for Rhea to stay out of her business, or else there will be big trouble. Rhea tells Tiffany that if she doesn't get out of her range, she's going to welcome her back to Raw the Rhea Ripley way. I can only assume that means an ass whooping. Raquel and Liv both come out and jump them. This leads to another tag team match, playa, because backstage we get Adam Pearce talking to Rhea about having to deal with it. She needs a tag team partner. You're not allowed to go it alone. Tiffany comes back. I love the migraine look that Rhea gets when Tiffany gets there. Like, just her face when Tiffany interrupts Adam Pearce is just priceless. It's gold. It's that, I got to deal with this bitch. And I love it. I'm here for it. We get another women's tag team title match. This time it's between Damage Control and Jade and Bianca. I have written here, I wish this was just Io and Bianca again. The women's tag titles are generally meh. I hate bashing on Jade, and I'm sorry that I have to do this, but this is something that should be brought up to her in the back. There's a point where Kairi, they're working on Bianca in the ring, and Kairi runs over and punches Jade while she's on the apron. Just punches her. She shouldn't be able to knock Jade off the apron with a punch. She's a third of her size. Jade needs to be presented as more of an unstoppable force moving forward. Or figure out what they're doing, because unfortunately, she's not a chain wrestler. She's not a workhorse. She's not a work rate wrestler, as Hound likes to say. She needs to be presented as a monster, and that's not what this is. I think everyone except for one or two people need to stop using the spear. Too many people are using the spear, and they're using it not as a finisher. I will say this. Overall, this match is the best I've seen Jade Cargill look, and I will give it to her that it's improvement on her part. I will also say I think a lot of this was, the fact that it was Io Sky and Kairi Sane, and they are damn good at what they do. A great match. It ended with crappy outside interference. I wasn't a fan of how Jada and Lash. I'm sorry, Jakara, not Jada. Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend interfered in this. It was kind of weak. It just wasn't good. So there's that. But tag team title, it looks like this is probably leading to some sort of 3-way tag team title match. I would assume that that's not going to happen at Crown Jewel because they're not going to have that many women on the Saudi show. Sorry, guys. I hate to tell you this. It's just where they're at in the world. It's that culture is probably not going to go for that many women's matches. It's just the way it is. That's why they only do 1 or 2, and they're usually singles matches. But we'll see. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they'll do this. Maybe they'll try to change the climate culture over there. Be cool to see. Next, we get Braun Breaker explaining why he attacked Jey Uso. I thought this was a really good segment. Also, I'm sorry, I have this mixed up. We also get Pierce telling Finn Balor that there's no rematch between him and Damian Priest, that he gave him the time, but now it's time to focus on the tag team titles. Yes, focus on the tag team titles. Do this. Adam Pierce, good call. So we're going to get a tag team number 1 contenders tag tournament, which starts tonight. We get the War Raiders versus Alpha Academy in what is essentially a squash match. It's a hair less than a squash match, but it's kind of a squash match. The War Raiders came in. They looked strong. They had a really good showing, and the finisher that they used on Tozawa was awesome. Awesome. It looked like he just got killed, and I'm for it. And I'm for this tag team tournament. Let's see a great tournament. I know Showtime will back me on this. He is all about a good tournament. I know Hound loves a good tournament. He's a big fan of the G1 Climax tournament. We then get Cody Rhodes and Gunther in an in-ring angle. This was kind of exactly what you thought it was going to be. It was a show of respect, but a show of disrespect a little bit. A couple of backhanded compliments here and there. I'm excited to see where they go with this match, to see how they get someone over for the Crown Jewel Championship. I think what's going to end up happening is that Owens is probably going to interfere on Gunther's behalf, and that's how Gunther's going to win. This way, Cody still looks strong. You need someone to interfere so that whoever wins doesn't they don't get lessened by this, because you're essentially saying that whoever wins this is the champ. We then get Kofi Kingston versus Braun Breaker. Kofi starts off hot, gets a lot off quick, and then gets really, really cut off quickly by Braun Breaker. Braun ends up winning the match and just decimates the New Day post-match. And Jey Uso comes out and makes the save, thus leading to Jey Uso versus Braun Breaker next week for the Intercontinental Championship. I think, again, you want to keep giving me Braun Breaker versus Jey Uso, I'm okay with that. Those have been awesome matches. I could almost see them, though, taking the title off of Jey Uso pretty quickly so that they can throw him right into this bloodline situation. I could almost see the bloodline causing Jey Uso to lose the IC title. We get Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley backstage. It was a very cool interaction. I like this idea that Priest is done with Finn. He's done with the Judgment Day, but he'll always have Rhea Ripley's back. That's a nice little touch to it. But it sounds like Priest is going to try to go back after the world title. I'm thinking that they wait until after Crown Jewel, obviously. They need to focus on Cody versus Gunther. I wouldn't mind seeing another Damian Priest versus Gunther match, and this time have it ending cleanly. Honestly, that was the best match I've seen from both. That was the best version of both of them, as far as I'm concerned, was that SummerSlam match. We get more into Miz versus R-Truth. Truth gets a quick roll-up while the Final Testament comes out, and then Final Testament comes in, throws Truth back into the ring just to get beat up. And we get a quick Wyatt thing. I believe this is them telling us that the Wyatts are going to be attacking the Miz next, which I think that makes sense. He's kind of been a bit of a turd, so I could see that one happening. And now we get the main event. I told you it was going to happen again, guys. One more time. So it's going to be Rhea and Tiffany versus Liv and Raquel. I don't know if it's just Raquel's time off because she was sick, and I know she was sick, and she has mast cell activation syndrome. And again, I'm not trying to bash her for getting sick. That's not where I'm at, but she was definitely showing some ring rust in this match. I know she's been out with the illness. She just doesn't look as impressive as she used to. I think she needs to find her place again. Find her character again. Her just sitting there quietly, it's not working. I like that she's angry. I like that she's not just a smiling baby face again, but she needs to. She's just not impressing me right now. It's just not doing it right now. I will say this: Rhea Ripley is amazing. She impresses me every match. If Raquel keeps going down this route, though, and again, I'm not bashing her for doing whatever she needs to do to be healthy. Yes, be healthy. Always be healthy. You should take care of your health first and foremost, especially in this business, because you're the only one that's going to do it. I'm a big believer in that. Now, I said this about Nia, and I said this about someone else recently. I think some of this might come into, you might have to alter your style just a scotch. I said this about Nikita Lyons on the last show with Hound, because she kept getting injured. I think she tore both of her ACLs over the last year, basically. And unfortunately, sometimes your body isn't built for what you're trying to do. And Raquel, if this is how she's going to be, like, she's not going to be able to be the bodybuilder that she was. She might need to alter her style a hair, just a hair. Like, she might have to change one or two things in her repertoire. And again, I'm not sure. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe, like I said, maybe this is all just ring rust. The match ends up pretty much getting thrown out because Nia comes in, interrupts, allowing Liv to nail Rhea in the knee. Then Nia lays out Liv, Tiffany almost cashes in, and Dom once again makes the save. And I saw this one coming. This wasn't a surprise. But like I said, if they had Tiffany cash in before Crown Jewel, I think it would really, really further the storyline between her and Nia, and it would make it really interesting. But at the same time, I could see her maybe even cashing in at Crown Jewel on one of them, just whoever is down and out at that point. But who knows? We'll see what happens. We've got about 2 weeks until Crown Jewel. It's the first weekend of November. It's a Saudi show, so it'll probably be in the afternoon. I kind of like it being in the afternoon. It gives me a chance to do other stuff during the day or do stuff at night. I watch that. It'll probably be a 6-match card. I'm going to go 6 matches on this one. So we'll see. Again, Legion, thank you for bearing with me by myself this week. We will be back to our normal scheduled programming next week. It's just coming out of the hurricane and everything. We have been struggling to get back on schedule. Me, myself especially. I'm down in Florida. I suffered through Helene and Milton. There was a lot of stuff just closed, and we had it took time to get back to normal life, unfortunately. I know both Hound and Showtime have been working with me, and I've been trying to work with them with both their normal business schedules along with the show. So I do apologize if there have been any delays in the shows, especially if you are an avid listener or watcher. Please do not leave us. We love you. We need you. Tell your friends about us. If you have friends who are wrestling fans, be like, hey, this is the best wrestling show on the web right now. Because we are. We were asked. I got asked what we bring to the table. Honestly, I think we bring a better analysis to the table than a lot of wrestling shows do, and that's not to bash anyone else. It's just to build us up. I think we're doing a great. I think the Legion is building. We've got merchandise coming out soon, guys. Stay tuned for that. Hats, T-shirts, everything. We're going to be at WrestleCon this year. It's going to be amazing. Keep an eye out for us. Please keep listening, keep watching, keep following, keep loving us. We love you. And guys, thank you for sitting through this with me. I know I move a little faster because there's no back and forth with me and Showtime. I miss the back and forth between me and Showtime. I'm not going to lie. But until next time, guys, tuck your chin when you bump.